I'm not a lawyer, but the judge has finally allowed evidence from the Jonathan Majors trial to be released to the public, so let's get into it. So let's start with Grace Jabbari's account of what happened the night of the March incident. Now again, since there's no live stream, we have to rely on the reports of journalists who are in the courtrooms. According to Pilar Melendez's reporting, on the stand, Grace testified that on March 25th, the day of the assault, it started off as a really nice, loving, and sweet day. Jonathan had surprised her with brunch and then had plans for a play and dinner that evening for the two. So the couple heads downstairs, and then Jonathan's mood, quote, shifted after he asked Grace to button her top up. So they go to the play, and then they head to dinner where he reportedly began calling himself a monster and expressing thoughts of unaliving himself. Eventually, Jonathan's mood is able to turn, and Grace says the two are able to have a flirty dinner. They leave the restaurant, they're in the chauffeured car, driving over the Manhattan Bridge, headed home. Grace is leaning her head over Jonathan's shoulder, watching him kind of fiddle with his phone. And then she sees a text from someone named Cleopatra. And that text includes a link to the 1995 song Lady by D'Angelo Long. And the text itself says, quote, I wish I was kissing you right now. According to Grace's testimony, she says she grabbed Jonathan's phone and then turned away to get a better look at the message. She immediately feels a painful and heavy thud on top of her as Jonathan tries to pry the phone out of her fingers. Jonathan, according to Grace's testimony, then grabs her arm, places it behind her back, and then twists her arm and finger. Grace says, quote, then I felt a hard blow across my head. Jonathan eventually gets the phone back and exits the car. So the driver of that car was called to testify in this case. He's a black lane driver and he testifies with an interpreter. According to him, he was driving the couple back to their house when Grace says, quote, I want to see something on your phone. Jonathan replies, there's nothing there, but the girl, according to this driver, kept insisting. The driver then says that the boy, meaning Jonathan, wanted to get rid of the girl, so he opened the door. The driver says, quote, he was trying to get rid of her. He was saying, leave me alone, I want to go. He was not doing anything, she was doing everything. I do remember the boy pushing her back into the car to get rid of her. Then they both left. And for context, the driver was not called by Jonathan's team, he was called by the state. Okay, so let's get into the first video, which is what happens once Jonathan exits the car and Grace also gets out. According to Grace's testimony, she chased Jonathan for at least 2 minutes trying to get answers about the text and him cheating. At one point, she loses him on the chase and had to ask some strangers that she ran into to call her a car home. So this next video is when she encounters those strangers. The audio is not great, but there are some parts that you can kind of make out.
Who's going? No way.
Yeah, but I just seen in the
Call him. Do you want to call him? It makes you feel better. I know who's how you do.
Thanks, okay? No, basically, I just had to run out of the car. It's insane. Seems like a lie.
No.
Well,
what's funny is...
My boyfriend,
yeah.
you're in Can I get you in the car? I don't want to leave you because we're about to get in our car. I know where I live. So I live in Seventh Avenue. Okay, let's get you. We can't leave this girl. No, honestly.
Hey, we'll take her own goal. We'll take her own goal.
We got it. No,
I'm sorry.
I don't know what to do. No, I simply will not.
No, you're fine. You're going to be fine.
Where's our bag and stuff?
Yo. Bro.
I know you need to stop.
So from there, Grace and Jonathan go back to the car. They argue some more inside of the car, and then the two separate, with Jonathan going to a hotel and Grace going back to the strangers that she had just met. The woman stranger, whose name is Chloe says that once they found out that Grace and Jonathan lived together, they hung around trying to figure out who would stay where for the night. But the group of strangers were actually headed to a party and were already late, so she invited Grace to go party with them, and that's how she ended up at that club. Photos of Grace's finger and ear have been released, and images of Jonathan Majors' face and jacket are also floating around the internet. Another piece of evidence released was Jonathan's 911 call that was placed once he arrived home the next morning. He bangs on the door, but there's no answer from Grace, so he gets maintenance to open the door.
Attempted suicide, I think.
What is the location? What happened exactly? Do you know?
No, I don't know. But she's unconscious. She's my ex-partner. We broke up. I came back. She sent me text messages insinuating as much. I stayed in a hotel last night. I came home this morning. I banged on the door. I've been at the apartment for about 40 minutes now. I banged at the door. I finally went downstairs and asked the doorman to help us. They let me in via the handyman.
Hello, caller?
Hey, how are you?
And the patient's breathing?
Oh, yes, sir. She is.
Okay, is she awake?
No.
They're going to be there as soon as possible.
Okay.
Obviously, if you could
What
just
should I do? What should I do?
If you could just make sure the door's open, she didn't fall and hit her head, anything that you know of, right?
No, I think I saw a cut behind her ear.
Okay.
Yeah. She's conscious though. She tried to. Yeah. Yeah. So folks, will you just keep that confidential? Fella, this way.
So you're speaking to the cops?
Yeah, I'm assuming this is either our guys. I mean.
Is it the police?
The state had some other witnesses, but they rested their case, and then Jonathan Majors' team had a few of their own witnesses, including Jonathan's agent, who testified about Jonathan calling him very distraught because he couldn't open his door the morning after the fight. Okay, so I am sure that I have missed a ton because, again, there's no live stream and it's really hard to piece everything together. But this is what I could kind of piece together for the story. Both sides have rested and closing statements are expected tomorrow, and then jury deliberations. So whatever I have missed, I'm sure the jury did not, and we'll see how they decide.